had been at the beginning between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar, which he had made there at the first. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which when Abraham had flocks and herds and tents. Now, one thing to understand, just very briefly, is this is a summary of both of them. So on one hand, we see Abraham had possessions, but he also had a relationship with God. So Abraham had the cattle, he had the silver, he had the gold, he had the tent, he had all of that. But he also had a place where he had an altar, where he called the name of the Lord. He had a sense of purpose. He had a sense of a relationship with God. He understood what was important, and he cultivated that relationship actively. Now you contrast that with Lot, who didn't have any of that. He didn't have any relationship. He only had physical things. And many times we see that in life. There are people who are so focused on success and prosperity that they ignore what's truly important. And there's a common lie. There's a common deception of the enemy that you have to focus on one or the other, that you cannot be successful truly in your natural life if you focus too much on relationship with God. And you might have to, you can't focus on one without the other, which isn't the case. God expects us to build our lives around the relationship with him. So Lot made this mistake. He made this choice because he didn't have a sense of purpose. His own understanding was just follow Abraham and increase my possessions as Abraham increases his possessions. That was his own understanding. He just wanted to, he followed Abraham wherever he went. He wanted to grow his own riches. He wanted his own prosperity. And we're going to see further proof of this as we read on. But it's important because this shows us, this establishes that Abraham was a man who was pursuing the purpose of God. He built altars to God. He had a solid relationship with God. Of course, the blessings were there, the possessions were there, the material things were there. But he had the focal point of his life was around his relationship with God. He had something that he was constantly focusing on, that was drawing his attention to God. He built an altar to the Lord. Now, I want you to ask yourself a question. Do you have a solid relationship with God? Or are you entirely focused on what God can do for you? Are you entirely focused on, the natural and material goods that you can get from God? You'll be surprised at how many Christians